And here we go for game number 3. We are tied 1 game apiece in this best of 5.
All right, so spawning not only on your screen, but also down in the bottom right side, able to force this into now a best of 3, showing us some great games. Please give a cheer for Squirtle.
And in the northwest position as the Red Zerg, hailing from Team Millennium, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Stefano.
And I must say, we have seen nothing but epic PvZ series out of Stefano so far. This very well could go to the absolute last game. I think Stefano's going to know basically what went wrong in that last game. He was never able to do as much damage as he wanted to. But I do want to say he always types out a nice little message to his opponent. He seems to always do that.
It's very, very manner. And you know what? In that last game in Tomb Valley, you know, as a Zerg, it is pretty tough to actually attack either the third or that natural, you know, especially when you're dealing with force fields and then, of course, Immortals mixed up behind that to just decimate your roaches. Maybe it was just that there was no answer for Stefano as far as attacking that third and getting some damage done. Obviously, when the Protoss army expanded a little bit and extended itself out to the fourth, that's where really he was able to get the damage done. But Antigua Shipyard, his map selection, you know, we've seen Stefano play, get that very, very quick third. And this is a third for the Protoss as Zerg that you can actually deny quite well.
Right, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the bases do spawn relatively close. So you do see a lot of players trying to run into that third base, also a lot trying to expand to that third base. Now, one thing I want to mention is in game number 1, I mean, we saw Squirtle go for similar stuff, but he lost a lot of Immortals to those Lings.
Yes, he did.
In game number 2, he's like, I'm going to keep these alive. And he did. He kept the first 3 alive, didn't have to remake anymore. Those Immortals eventually became extremely useful towards the end of the game because as a Zerg player, when you're kind of in panic mode, you're like, well, what units can I make right now? Roaches, they build quick. They're very resilient, so that's going to be one of the first units you go to. But, you know, Immortals were able to kill that off. And I feel like even the first game was sort of close at times, even though he lost those early units. So Stefano's going to have to remember that if he can't do early damage, Squirtle's going to punish him for it.
Yeah, and quite frankly, he had the opportunity to get that early damage in game 2, but some great force fields and, of course, the warping of the Zealots. He was much more prepared for that. I think in game number 1, he was kind of like out and about, being a bit careless with his units, just caught off guard. I mean, it can happen, but as you mentioned, it was still a close game. You know, versus other Protoss, Stefano could have quite easily just gone ahead and stamped that as a victory on his side, but this is Squirtle after all.
Stefano once again going to be going for the third base. The timing of this was so spot on right when that pylon dies. He has exactly 300 minerals to go ahead and build that expansion. And I got to hand Stefano, man, he just sticks to his guns. I would say it's almost predictable that he's going to go for 3 bases here. So as a Protoss player, you know there's most likely not going to be a super all-in rush. But I will say Squirtle did go for the relatively safe wall in here back towards the Nexus. The only problem for him later is going to be moving those units from his main to outside of his natural because they have to go all the way around and kind of work their way through the mineral line. We'll see if that actually ends up playing a role here. But for now, the positioning of this does keep you relatively safe.
Yep, the third base now up for Stefano. Already transferred a bunch of drones over there to make sure that it is as effective as it can be upon spawning. And we've got the natural on its way. And you know, you kind of mentioned the fact that Stefano sticks to his guns. You can look at so many of his games and see the exact same build and composition and order, especially versus Protoss, over and over again. I really feel, though, like MC was a player who exploited that a little bit. And even though he wasn't able to just go super aggro against them every time and win, you know, the right map, the right unit composition, catching your opponent off guard, that really did kind of send Stefano into a path that allowed MC to ultimately take that victory over him. So, you know, I don't know. Why is Squirtle going to maybe recognize and do something like that? Or is he comfortable saying, I can beat Stefano in the late game, so I'm just going to play my game?
Yeah, and I feel like that is probably exactly what he's going to be saying here, DJ Wheat, because we've seen him get a mothership in both games, so that's a pretty high mothership rate so far. And also, I mean, in this game, you don't see, you know, only 1 gas being taken. You don't see 6 to 7 gateways being added on. You don't see anything crazy out of him. That's not to say he's not a crazy player, because he was doing like 2 Warp Prism drops at a time, which definitely a lot of Protoss players do not do that. And he's also taking the double gas at his expansion here, DJ Wheat, which means he wants to tech. And if you take a look at the units tab, he has a Stalker and a Sentry. I don't know how he gets away with this, but that's why we have such awesome games.
Yes, and we're so thankful for that as well. So yes, he's going to tech, and that means we're going to have ourselves a good little game here as the Roach War now finishing up, speed underway, going to lair inside the main base, and already adding a few extra extractors here. We do have that one Stalker out and about. Ling's just checking things out. Eventually they might meet up and have a quick little meeting, and that'll be all she wrote. But over on the other side, +1's about to finish here for Squirtle. He's also got his Robo up. He added 3 more gateways. That Observer's going to be popping out very, very soon. He's got a Ling here trying to deny that third, and I think this is going to be one of those things that we're going to want to keep a close eye on. And is Stefano going to be able to effectively stop that third? Is he going to get rid of those rocks ahead of time? These are all questions that will be answered very soon.
Man, just the amount of drones that Stefano is able to safely get up is so, as you said, crazy. He's currently at 66 here. We see Squirtle doing the same thing, just working on getting out as many workers as possible. The 3 warp gates, once again, this is what we've seen him do in the past. The same opener time and time again for both of these players. They're just content playing out their game because right now, I mean, it's kind of worked in their favor both, I guess, where it's currently tied 1-1. So it's not an obvious glaring hole in their build orders. They feel very confident, and it's going to mostly come down to the control. In the first game, we saw Squirtle control very poorly, losing those initial units. And in the second game, control phenomenally, where he actually kept those sentries alive, even though they were completely surrounded by Zerglings. So as long as he keeps the Immortals, keeps the sentries, he's going to be in a great spot.
I feel like Stefano's getting ready to put on a lot of pressure. We've got several Roaches on the way. Speed's going to be finishing up 11 more Roaches beyond this. He did not get that huge swell of Zergling like he got in game 1 and 2. He has actually pumped out a ton of Roaches. He's now sitting on 21 with 7 more on the way, and that could be exactly the force that he needs to try to go in and deny that third. Now, meanwhile, we do see several Immortals out and so many Sentries, about 8 of them right now, just pooling more and more energy. Will he be able to defend such a thing? Still working now off of the 6 gates. Should be able to get another warp in before these units make their way, and there the march begins right as Roach Speed is about to complete.
Has to be so careful with these Immortals. Once again, like we've seen in the previous games, he is going to go for 3 Immortals. Stefano has cut drone production. We don't see a 4th base on the way. Overlords are indeed being created, but he's going to be following this up with more units. He will have the supply to be able to do so. We do see lots of reinforcements on the way. The Observer is going to spot this. You have to be so very careful here. And here we go. Stefano's angle is going to be great. The force fields are okay, but a lot of these Roaches are still attacking. This is going to buy the Immortals valuable time to kill off these Roaches, but at this point, the Zerglings were right up in this attack. Can Squirtle actually hang on here? I think Stefano, if he reinforces this, may be able to overwhelm him.
Uh-oh, there's just 1 more. No, 2 more Immortals remaining. We got a few more Zealots coming out here. The sentries are most certainly going to fall. All the Stalkers are gone, and there are so many Roaches left over, but he doesn't want to take more losses. He might just be waiting for the next influx of units, and here we have at least 6, 7 more Roaches making their way down, and a few more joining in on this. He's going to go right into the main and do the damage there.
Man, these probes, they have a death wish. He transferred 1 group and then canceled it, but the second group did not get the memo, ending up losing a lot of probes there, 11 overall, and now the Immortal count is at 3. That is enough to deal with some amount of these Roaches. I don't know if he can kill all the Roaches, especially if Stefano goes for the split attack. Once again, he says, there's a wall here, I'm going to make my own door, and it looks like the reinforcements could be intercepted here, but I don't think Squirtle has enough units to split them up to deal with this multi-prong aggression.
There's no way. In fact, this is a great decision here by Stefano. He's now put a lot of Roaches inside the main. The 2 Immortals do clean up the Roaches inside the natural, but is he going to engage here? He should, as he's taking out sentries, a few Zealots now. He's going to focus fire down that Immortal, and that will go down, and that might mean that the 3rd base is completely wide open for Stefano to take it.
Now Squirtle has held off the attack at his main and his expansion. Can he do it at the 3rd? The force field, that's a good start. If these units decide to move up the ramp, they're going to run into a bunch of Immortals, which is actually a good thing because he could kill all 3 once again, and this could be Squirtle's demise, similar to the first game, losing groups of 3 Immortals at a time. You really can't afford to do that, and it does look like more reinforcements are on the way. The 3rd is completely exposed here, and the Roaches are just running into the main base. No, the force field is going to be denying that for now. but the third base could very well fall.
Oh, he's going to just scoot around this mineral line, taking out Zealots a long way. Might even get this Twilight Council as well. Looks like he has to give up on that, even though it only has 21 hit points remaining, and it will be cleaned up. A look over here at the third as the Nexus is being torn apart, along with the gateways and the cannons that are sitting here, and Stefano still has an enormous amount of units to combat with.
Some of his production going to be slowed here, as well as two of those are unpowered. We don't have Blink for these Stalkers. They actually have nowhere to run, and they're completely surrounded, trying to get back to the safety of the Zealot wall. Can they do it? Very few of them do survive. It does look like he will hold on for now, but losing that third means he's going to be down 2 bases here, and Stefano's just going to keep making Roaches, keep making Zerglings. The Roaches do have +1 attack, but just look at that production tab. It is non-stop Roach Zergling all day.
Oh yeah, he got up to that point where he likes to be. He's going back in yet again, more units joining in here. Eventually there's going to be no more force fields to be able to throw down at the ramp, especially if he targets those sentries as well. And I feel like Squirtle's got to be so careful and so just make the right decision. There it is,
but
GG.
Wow. The units lost there overall was about the same, but that is part of the problem when you go for... he wasn't able to deny those early bases that Stefano loves to do, and you saw there, he's just making Zerglings, just making Roaches. His expansion, his fourth base was pretty late, but that's because he was doing constant aggression. He didn't even need to make any more drones for that expansion, and as a Zerg player, that's like the dream state right there, where you don't have to make any more drones. All your larva is for attacking units, and you just keep hammering away. So even though the losses, the numbers were about the same, you have to remember Stefano took the risk with so many drones, and that's how it pays off.
You know, Stefano also making some great decisions in terms of how he's splitting his Roaches off, forcing Squirtle then to make his own decisions on how he's going to split his unit composition in a way where he can actually deal with everything. There was a few very, very nice moves in there where he's able to, of course, warp in some Stalkers in the main, get rid of those Roaches. He had the Immortals that were taking care of the Roaches in the natural, but then he just didn't have enough to deal with what was at the third, and eventually